Hey everyone, welcome to the Pat Mayo Hour. Fight Night 62, Maia versus LaFlare, daily fantasy Kountermove, and DraftKings breakdown in the studio with me, the host of the Bookie Beatdown on Fantasy Sports Network and Fight Network. It's Cody Saftik. You ready?
Yo, hey, coming off a hot week. Let's keep the ball rolling.
Hot week! Monday for us.
Who doesn't like money?
We did good. Well, you did good. I just interpreted it the right way. One on DraftKings,
Which is good.
One on DraftKings, one on Kountermove, like placed high in some of these huge GPPs. And like we talked about last week, a lot of it had to do with we left money on the table. We didn't go to our budget.
That seems to be the move, to leave some money on the table. You got a bit of unique team, and as we discussed, we're learning as we go here. But we're looking for guys that want to finish. We're looking for guys that'll get that finish, and it seemed to work out. So let's see if we can reduplicate the magic.
Yeah, the only guy you whiffed on was Matt Brown. But listen, he was a cheap guy, and we went against Pettis in the main event.
Yeah, in a different world,
worked out.
that one guy scores more points, you win the whole thing.
Yeah,
small adjustments.
And there was a lot of people on Matt Brown. He's one of the highest owned players of the week. I guess the one thing that we do have to get to is the mispronunciation guide.
Oof.
I actually improved last week. I was mispronouncing 46% of names. Now it's only 44. I'm 25 of 57. So
just getting better all around.
I know. So if people are the uninitiated at least, will know that this sound will go off every time I don't say someone's name correctly. And trust me, there's going to be a lot of them.
It happens.
I haven't looked at it yet. Where is this card anyway?
It's come from Brazil.
Wait, does every card does UFC run half of its operation out of Brasilia?
Well, it's all about attendance, right? You want people that are going to be big fans. And something that I noticed, you look at the events that happen in Las Vegas, if it's the prelims, it's the Fight Pass prelims, the place is completely empty. In Brazil, the very first fight of the night, the place is packed, the people are passionate. If you're going to have that type of sales at your venues, why not keep going back?
Yeah. I suppose that's true.
They're passionate. They want the fights there, and why not? Canada was similar in that it was so popular over here. We had to have events, but then we saw the Toronto's numbers slide. And then we saw George St. Pierre's not fighting in Montreal. Then the people in Montreal don't really care. Then they try to go to Halifax, and Halifax actually did good, but
Halifax
the Quebec City card didn't do good.
As someone from Halifax,
guys like to party.
Guys like to party,
fights.
and if there's any event, people are all in because nothing ever goes to Halifax.
Exactly, it's a big thing.
Maybe that's the market. Hit up places like Halifax, Edmonton, Winnipeg. The secondary market for Canadian major cities, maybe they would have a bit more interest in seeing a big event.
Yeah, if you go to Saskatchewan, and they are going to Saskatchewan, that's exactly it. It's like, hey, normally we just run across the highway for fun because there's nothing else to do up here. But, this UFC thing, that appeals to me.
Hey, listen, we don't have many highways in Halifax. We do have the oceans. You can go fishing if you want to.
I hear that's popular.
It's somewhat popular. All right, do we want to start with the main event, or do you see something that jumps out to you right away as a quick finish that we need to have on our team?
Well, Gilbert Burns is that guy. If you don't want to talk about the main event right away, Gilbert Burns is fighting Alex Oliveira, and I really feel bad for this guy. He was initially slotted as the co-main event on this card. He's fighting an American by the name of Josh Thompson. Josh Thompson, world-class fighter, fought for a UFC title. I'm sure Gilbert Burns put in a world-class training camp for this particular fight. Unfortunately, Josh Thompson gets hurt. He pulls off. He gets a replacement by the name of Alex the Cowboy Oliveira.
The Cowboy?
Local Brazilian.
There's a lot of guy with the Cowboy nickname.
There's actually two. And this guy shouldn't really have that nickname. I mean, there's a one bona fide Cowboy in Donald Cerrone, and then Alex Oliveira making his UFC debut short notice at a weight class that he has not yet fought at. Not exactly riveting stuff. But yes, I would have to assume the finish is going to happen here for one Gilbert Burns.
So we're saying Gilbert Burns on Kountermove 5,300, on DraftKings 12,000.
It's expensive.
Very expensive, but maybe people will fade him because the price tag is so high. Hopefully you have some guys, some underdogs here that are a bit cheaper that we can lean with to mitigate some of that salary damage.
Well, the fact that we're spending so much money on our first pick in Gilbert Burns, yes, we'll have to save a couple dollars down the road. But I liken this almost to the Ronda Rousey when we said, hey, listen, you guys should take Ronda Rousey. Well, she's the most expensive player, and most of the teams are going to have her. Well, those are the teams that are going to do good. Yeah. She's going to get the first round finish.
And that happened last week too. Like you identified your two expensive players that you needed to have in your lineup, and then you roll the dice. I mean, that's how you win in these things. You need to have a unique lineup, and then you have to have some underdogs that either stick around for the 3 rounds, maybe squeak out a decision, or just for whatever reason, that they get a finish right away.
Absolutely.
So is there any underdog that you see right now that sticks out to you as a good value?
In terms of people that are good value bet on DraftKings, two people that popped out for me, for DraftKings anyways. Katsunori Kakuno is a Japanese fighter. Very, very nice karate background.
Karate.
Yeah, karate. But just the way he moves. And he's got some crazy moves to him.
Does he make the sound effects when he does it?
I don't believe so. I don't think that actually does anything. Not so much, in the cinematic movies. Yes, absolutely. But Katsunori Kakuno is a bona fide good Japanese fighter, and he's 1-1 in the UFC. He lost his debut at 155 pounds, has since dropped down to 145 pounds. Got a win over Sam Cecilia by finish. Important to note the finish. Coming into this fight, he's clearly going to be the underdog.
He is. He's 8,500 on DraftKings, 4,800 on Kountermove. And they're both 4,800 on Kountermove. So Kountermove kind of has this snuffed out a little bit.
Yes.
Where DraftKings does not. I mean, Souza's coming in at 1090.
Souza's a bit of a big favorite, in terms of the actual betting lineup, minus 220, which is something I don't fully understand. But he's 6 feet tall. He's very big for the weight class. Against Katsunori Kokunu, who's 5'7", maybe that's how the odds makers are looking at this. I'm looking at this as people that are able to finish. And Katsunori Kokuno is a finisher. He's able to finish you on the feet. He's able to finish you on the ground. Not only that, he's a very experienced fighter. And for the price point on DraftKings at $8,500, I like that. My other cheap player, one of the cheapest players that you can possibly get on DraftKings, Josh Koscheck.
I know him.
Yes, he's really at the trail end of his career, and he knows that. And I think that he's going to try to put forth his best effort. Now, his wrestling pedigree is a very bona fide and solid wrestling pedigree. We saw in his last fight against Jake Ellenberger, he was kind of almost desperate to get the fight to the ground. He did not want to stand with Jake Ellenberger. He got hit a couple times. He's wincing. He's looking at the clock. He doesn't really want to be there. Against Eric Silva, his opponent here, not known for his wrestling, and he's kind of reckless. So even if Josh Koscheck loses, and the odds makers were certainly going to tell you that Josh Koscheck is going to lose. Even if he does lose, he will score takedowns. He will score maybe some dominant positions. He'll get some ground and pound. He might be a good value considering his price point.
So you think he can stick around in this match?
Yes, I realize that he's been finished in his last 3 fights. That
doesn't sound so good.
It doesn't. And that's why he's so cheap. People are looking at it as, well, Robbie Lawler knocked him out. Well, Robbie Lawler is the current champion. Well, Tyrone Woodley knocked him out. Well, Tyrone Woodley's ranked in the top 5.
And knocks everyone out.
Well, Jake Ellenberger just submitted him. Well, Jake Ellenberger is a bona fide top 10 guy as well, who's always a perennial.
So what you're saying is that Eric Silva is not on the class of these guys.
Eric Silva's been in the UFC for 3 years. When he first debuted in the UFC, he was 27 years old, and they said, this guy will fight for the title since then. He has never won back-to-back fights in 3 years.
Is he coming off a win?
Yes, he is.
Perfect. We're going against him.
Now, I'm not necessarily saying that he's going to lose, but I'm saying for the price point, I would not take Eric Silva, and people are assuming that he's going to finish Josh Koscheck. Koscheck's been finished 3 times. I don't assume that finish is going to happen, and for the $7,500, I think Josh Koscheck, a little bit of a smarter choice.
Yeah, so for the price point at $1,190 is $100 cheaper than Gilbert Burns, who you like a lot.
Gilbert Burns is my outright. He's going to finish in the first round or the second round. The only way he doesn't finish in the first round is if he tells himself, I'd like to get a little more ring experience, and decides to let the guy hang around for a little bit. Regardless, this Alex Oliveira is going away. He's going to be put away. This fight with Josh Koscheck, for example, this fight will mark the most fights any welterweight has ever had in the UFC. Josh Koscheck's been around for a very long time. As you mentioned, you know him. He's on the Ultimate Fighter Season 1. He fought Georges St. Pierre for a title. I get that he's on the downslide of his career. I get that he owns his own gym now and he's training himself, and honestly, that's not a really good way to go about your situation, but he's a career gamer. He's an NCAA champion.
He's a gamer.
He's an NCAA champion. He's won at the highest level, maybe not the UFC title, but he's always been a winner. And even though he's 35 years old, even though he's at the trail end of his career, people don't just quit on themselves. He's coming in to win, and I expect him to get a couple points anyways.
All right, let's go to the main event. So Damian Maia versus Ryan LaFlare. Woo!
Ooh, LaFlare.
LaFlare. He gets a double woo on the go. A lot of people gravitate towards the main event fight because that's the one they tune in to watch.
Yes.
They want to have some sort of action on it. Do you like the side either way? Because I don't necessarily know if I want to take another guy that's $10,400 on DraftKings. Although DraftKings and Kountermove have them swapped. Like LaFlare is the favorite, at least pricing-wise, on DraftKings. But on Kountermove, it's Maia that's the favorite.
It's weird how it works out, and obviously the people that are looking at it, it's okay. You can look at how they traditionally score in the past. You can try to set it up as this matchup. In this case, it's a 5-round fight for us, so a lot of people, like you mentioned, they want to go with the main event because it's what they're going to watch. But also, people really think that extra 2 rounds is important.
It is important.
It just depends if you're thrashing the guy for that, or
exactly.
if you're going to get the finish possibly in one of those rounds.
So who do you like in this fight outright?
I actually like Damian Maia in this fight.
All right, so then he becomes a great value on DraftKings because he's only $9,300.
He's actually inexpensive on DraftKings, which is something definitely to take in consideration. Damian Maia is being overlooked in this fight. He's the guy that's also, as we mentioned with Josh Koscheck, Damian Maia's been around. He's fought for a world title. He's fought the absolute best guys in the division. And people keep pointing out he has trouble with wrestlers. The absolute best wrestlers, the Rory McDonalds and the Jake Shields of the world, those are the guys he has troubles with. I think not necessarily that he goes and blows out Ryan LaFlare. Ryan LaFlare is super durable, undefeated guy. So it's hard for me to say he will finish him. But if the fight plays out on the ground, and there's a good high probability that it plays out on the ground, Damian Maia is a world champion on the ground, and he should get sweeps. He might be able to get the submission. He might be able to absolutely control him. Ryan LaFlare's a little too reckless, and that'll bode well for Damian Maia scoring points.
Yeah, and especially at that price, again, on Kountermove, probably a stay away at $5,300, but again...
Stay away from Ryan LaFlare on both, absolutely.
But, I mean, even Maia, he's more expensive than LaFlare on Kountermove, so he's probably a stay away there, too, just because you can find better pricing somewhere down. But on DraftKings, where he's so inexpensive, great guy to put on your team. Women's fight. Shayna Baszler, damn it, versus Amanda Nunes.
I don't know. How do you get Nunez wrong? It's just Nunez. You don't have to try to make it fancy.
But there's no Z. There's an S on the end.
Tomato.
No, it's not like that at all. It looks like it should be said Nunes. Or Nuns.
Nuns.
Nunnies.
Well, it's Nunez.
Okay, Nunez. Close enough.
Well,
I phonetically got there on that one.
You second doubted yourself near the stretch.
No, well, I'm going to put an X. Damn it. All right, so 7,700 for Basler? Baszler. So it's Baszler.
Shayna Baszler, the queen of spades.
Oh. Did she come out to the Ace of Spades by Motorhead?
That should be great, actually.
She really should.
Oh, she's a pro wrestling fan. She's a heavy metal fan, so I don't see why not.
$7,700 on DraftKings and $4,100 on Kountermove. That is the cheapest play in the game. Does she have any shot?
She's another one of these people that's just been around for too long. But whereas I compare Josh Koscheck, he's coming near the end, and Damian Maia maybe has still some good fights in her, it appears that Shayna Baszler is maybe mentally checked out at this point. She trains with Ronda Rousey. She's been staying with Ronda Rousey, and you would assume that would improve her. But at 34 years old, she's not making a whole lot of improvements. The mark here is that most people think that Nunez is going to knock Shayna Baszler out. Baszler had been finished in her last fight. Nunez kind of known for a finishing ability. But I don't think it plays out that way. Nunez is Brazilian, fighting in Brazil, but she gets really worked up. She almost comes out too aggressive. And we've seen it in the Zingano fight. Zingano fought Ronda Rousey. Manny Nunez had her done. First round, out. Second round, I'm getting tired. Third round, I am gassed, and I'm about to call it a day. If she does that same approach against Shayna Baszler will hang around. She will tire her out, and she could give her problems down the stretch. This is a pass as far as I'm concerned.
So it's stay away?
Yeah, stay away.
You don't want to go either way?
For $4,100, I actually really don't see the value in Shayna Baszler.
Just because you don't think, does she have any chance of finishing? Because if she doesn't, then you can't take her.
I don't think so. She's a submission fighter, and I don't see her getting the submission here. So I would avoid that one. And likewise, if people are going to assume Nunez is going to get the finish, hey, let them put her on their team. Because when that team doesn't come through, well, then I'll have a better chance with mine.
This is one of the closest fights in terms of DraftKings pricing and Kountermove pricing. Leonardo Santos versus Tony Martin. $9,900 for Santos, $9,500 for Martin. Do you have a strong feeling either way here?
I actually really like Martin.
Okay.
I was hoping that the actual gambling line would be wider because I figured Santos would be the favorite. But Tony Martin's really coming into his own. At 25 years old, training at American Top Team, this kid, he has potential.
You can't call him a kid if he's older than you. You know that, right?
He's 25 years old.
He's older than you!
Yeah, okay. But
he's not a kid. He's your elder. Have some respect.
You know what? I have a feeling I grow a better beard than one Tony Martin.
That's very doubtful.
Probably. I don't grow a great beard.
No, you don't.
All jokes aside.
That's not a joke.
Yeah. It really cut down to the core of me there.
Did you shave off your chest hair and just glue it on there?
Damn it, how did you know?
Yeah, that's what I used to do.
That's why I stopped wearing deep V's.
Yeah, there you go, because you got nothing left. You got to go for the full shave.
The full shave?
The full shave?
You get razor burn. I actually see a little razor burn.
No, I think
that's HD cameras were able to pick
the
that
HD
up.
camera's going to pick up my ingrown hair.
Ingrown hair.
It hurts.
Oh, that's what that was.
Yeah, that's what that was.
As long as it's not.
Back to Martin.
Back to Martin. They're both grapplers, so in an exchange of grapplers, you don't know who's going to get the finish. Tony Martin actually submitted a decent level black belt in his last fight, so maybe you're assuming, he's going to submit, but against Leo Santos, who's maybe a league above black belt, or a high-end black belt, I should say. I don't see the finish getting there. Tony Martin beats him. I just don't know that it's a very big, high-scoring fight, so I've avoided this one as well.
Okay. Tony Martin sounds like a NASCAR driver.
Tony Martin, once again, we talk about this all the time, but I'm assuming there's 100,000 Tony Martins living in the
Yeah,
United States.
It seems like you have a name that's impossible to pronounce at first glance, or you have the most generic white guy name of all time if you're fighting in the UFC at this point.
Yeah, well, Tony Martin, easy to throw on posters there and not worry about people having to mispronounce it. Even you, nailed it. First try.
Oh, yeah, Tony Martin, I'm in. I got that one down.
I was a little surprised. I'll have to give you a positive ding for that one.
Put it this way, it sounds like he could play in Major League Baseball. I know those names pretty well.
Fair enough.
Leonardo Mafra versus, it's got to be Kane! Carrizosa?
Kane Carrizosa.
Boom!
Nailed it.
It's like I practiced these, which I didn't, because that would be cheating.
And I would expect you to have a higher percentage if you were practicing.
That's true. But maybe that's what I'm doing. Maybe I'm mixing it in.
Maybe.
Just trolling people on this one. So Kane, got to be Kane, 9,100.
Yeah.
I really want to bet on him. His name is Kane.
He's one of these kids that kind of just got rushed to the UFC.
Is he one of these 30-year-old kids?
24.
Oh, okay.
And I'm 23, so I can almost call him the kid, right? But yes, at 20, just a younger fighter, but he came into the UFC at 6-0. And not only was he 6-0, he was coming off a 30-second win over Chris Quit on a Tachi Palace Fights regional fight scene. He hadn't really fought anybody at a high level. He makes his UFC debut against Chris Wade, and he got submitted very quickly in a guillotine choke. Leonardo Mafra, same thing. He kind of made his UFC debut short notice, albeit against a top 10 opponent at a weight class higher, at 170 pounds. Now he's dropping down to 155 pounds, which is more suited for 155. And training out of this shoot-to-box gym. And I know you don't know anything about shoot-to-box, but
I don't.
But they're well known in Brazil as just kind of a very ultra aggressive camp, and they've produced guys like Anderson Silva, Wanderlei Silva, Shogun.
They just tell
Ninja.
people to do steroids then, and that gets them all fired up.
I don't want to say it, but there's certainly a possibility that they have quite the nutritionist and strength.
They brought in Lance Armstrong's team to help everyone out?
Well, Mafra comes out like a house on fire, man. He really pushes the pace. And
so is he a guy who gets either a quick finish or gets beat?
Yeah. And in his fight with Rick Story, he came out really hot. He got taken down. He got submitted. Ken Carrizosa is kind of more of a striker as well. And I believe he's going to try to stand and trade with one Leo Mafra. So one, we got the guy that's in his backyard. And two, we got the guy that's dropping down the weight class, trains at a reputable
Great gym, yeah.
And he's aggressive. And when we're looking for people that can get the finish, he's one of those guys that may be able to get the finish. I don't know that so many people are high up on him. And so for that reason, I feel like that's going to help make our lineup a tad bit different than the other lineups. So I'm on Mafra.
You're on Mafra at 10,200. He is somewhat expensive.
He is expensive, and I actually only put him on my DraftKings at 10,200. I avoided him on Kountermove and kind of went with a different route, but I'm sure we'll recap that at the end of the episode.
We'll go to that.
There's certainly some value in Mafra.
I actually like the price on Kountermove is actually better than it is on DraftKings. At only 4,700, you're getting a bit of a discount on Kountermove.
Yes, definitely. Like I said, with Kountermove, you can fit him on, and that's what I'm trying to say. This is a guy that's definitely worth a look if you can configure him into your lineup. I haven't seemed to put him down on mine in terms of my Kountermove. Like I said, I have him on DraftKings, but to each his own. I'm sure there's no...
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll mix and match. That's why you play these multi-entry events, and then you can submit different lineups, because we even said this, again, even with the Matt Brown thing last week. Who was it? Roy Nelson last week as well? Right. That, listen, he was a calculated gamble for the price he was at, but if you're only going to play one roster, you can't really put him on. Like, if you're going to play some of these underdogs in your lineup, you need to play 3 or 4 lineups. That's the way this goes. Like, you're not going to hit them all.
Well, at the beginning of the show...
That's why they're underdogs.
That's exactly it. But at the beginning of the show, you mentioned, well, who are some of the guys that are going to finish? Because we want to score big. There's only really 3 people on this entire card that really jump up. That I'm not going to say there's only 3 fish on the card, but there's 3 of them that jump up at me as that's a possible finish. We've already talked about Gilbert Burns as being that possible finish. Mafra is a possible finish. The reason I didn't put him on both is, like you said, play different tickets is he's either going to come out really aggressive and get that finish and score you a lot of points, or he's going to come out really aggressive and something's going to go wrong for him and he's not going to score you any points. So why double him up on both? So if you're going to play 5 different tickets or 5 different rosters, don't put him on all 5.
No, he's a guy to mix in, though. He's a guy with great upside, but a lot of downside that comes with it as well.
Fair enough.
So you mentioned 2 guys who get the finish. Who's the other one?
I thought you were going to get to him, but I want to see if you get the name right. But Andre Fili.
Oh, Andre Fili versus Gianfredo Pepe.
Yeah, I'm going to give that one to you.
Are they both Italian?
No, not at all.
They really should be.
Yeah.
So the way that I've said their names is not how you say their names at all.
Well, Godofredo Pepe, he's actually Godofredo Castro. His nickname's Pepe because of Pepe Le Pew. Yeah. Ugh, this guy stinks, and I believe he does stink. He's coming off 2 wins, not the highest level of competition. The biggest one may be Noah Lahad, who I'm not personally very big on. Andre Fili, training out of Team Alpha Male in Sacramento, California.
Oh,
he's got the best guys.
He's there with Alpha Mans?
Oh, just the whole room is just Alpha Males. That's what they are. And they're all his size. They all come in between 125 pounds and about 155 pounds.
Is this Fili or Pepe?
This is Andre Fili. This is my guy.
So Fili's your guy.
His nickname's Touchy, right?
Oh, Touchy.
So he's Touchy-Feely.
Oh my god.
That's what I'm saying. I'm sold on him. Minus 280 is the straight betting line. I like it. I like him for 280. But in terms of DraftKings and Kountermove, I put him on both of my bills.
I was gonna say he's a bit pricey on DraftKings. For Kountermove at 5,100, he's pretty easy to sneak onto the team if you just take one underdog, which I'm sure that we can find somewhere on the card. How about Drew Dauber versus Leandro Silva?
I think some value in Drew Dauber. He does not get put away. So if you're kind of thinking...
He's only $9,000. This is another one. Maybe I have this backwards, but it says it's $9,000 on DraftKings, $5,000 on Kountermove, and it's reversed for DraftKings. Like,
I've noticed the values are different,
Silva's
and that's why it takes a little bit of... Yeah.
So I guess this is a DraftKings play if you're going to make one.
If you want Silva, you have to assume he's going to finish Drew Dauber. And honestly, I just don't see it happening. I mean, Drew Dauber, look at the size of the guy's head. His jaw is made for getting hit. And yes, he does get hit, but he's not one to get put away. And back to this whole alpha male thing. Two of the highly touted fighters out of alpha male, one Danny Castillo and the current UFC bantamweight champion TJ Dillashaw. They also will spend some time in Colorado at Dwayne Bang Ludwig's gym. And that's where our guy here has spent some time. So the fact is he's training. I know Silva's back in Brazil. He's comfortable. He's 1-1 in the UFC. He's fighting in front of his hometown crowd. But if you're Drew Dauber, you're hungry for this win. You're training with high-level guys. You're prepared. If you see him, he's absolutely shredded right now. He looks in the best shape that he's looked in any of his performances. So there is some value on Drew Dauber. Avoid Silva. As far as I'm concerned, avoid Silva. But Drew Dauber certainly is some small action. I didn't put him on either of my bills, but I can see why people may be into him.
Francisco Trinaldo versus Akbar Areola.
Yes.
Anyone here you like?
I actually like Trinaldo.
Like as a strong play, though?
Not for the finish, because Akbar Areola is terrible. He's just not a very good fighter, but he doesn't get finished.
All right, well, if he's not going to finish, then I just can't fathom putting $10,800 my DraftKings lineup into him.
It's too expensive for somebody who you just don't think is going to get the finish. Trinaldo has finished guys in the past, and they've been garbage. Akbar Areola fits that same description of garbage, although he's durable. And that alone will probably see this one go 15 minutes. And Trinaldo will probably get really, really tired in the third round and not score a whole lot, so avoid him.
Okay, so last week, the reason that we ended up doing so well, especially on Kountermove, is you dominated these fights that weren't even on DraftKings.
Oh, yeah.
So we have two right now. Christos Giagos.
Christos Giagos.
Close. Versus Jorge de Oliveira.
Yeah, Jorge de Oliveira.
I got that one wrong. Damn it. I was
You
doing good,
say
too.
very Italian. You know what I mean?
They look like Italian names.
But they're in Brazil.
I
they're
don't
Brazilian.
care if they're in Brazil. I want to pronounce them Italian. All right?
Fair enough.
I want to go back to Pepe and Fili, and they can play the soft football, and they can go with the Bailey, and tackle with the hands.
Fair enough.
And do other fights.
Hey, listen, soccer's popular in Brazil as well.
This is true. Although they're Portuguese in Brazil.
Yes, they don't speak Brazilian, contrary to popular. And by popular, I mean very uninformed opinion.
Very uninformed opinions.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any of these two fights? Because Bentley Schuyler versus Freddie Serrano is the other one. Any of these like that worth putting on the card?
Yeah, funny you mentioned Kountermove. I actually got both of them. Bentley Schuyler, $4,300 is very, very cheap.
All right, so if that's the case, if you're in on Bentley Schuyler at $4,300, that means you can take a lot of these good favorites that you like on Kountermove.
Kountermove is the kind of thing that if you're looking for people that can get finishes, you can put 3 people. You can get the best guys, but then eventually you're going to need some of these dogs. With Bentley Schuyler being he's the curtain jerker. He's fighting an Olympian, a wrestling Olympian. So that's, how's he going to score against a guy that's going to be taking him down? The guy doesn't have great cardio, and I think Bentley, training at American Top Team, a very good gym, is going to be able to push the pace, tire him out, get enough points that for $4,300, it's worth it to me.
I feel like you have an American bias here. Are you saying that American gyms are better than Brazilian gyms?
I'm not saying that, but...
But you are.
No. Bentley Schuyler's actually from Bolivia.
Yeah, but he's training in the U.S.
Yeah, well, the fact that he moved to the U.S. from Bolivia
probably means he's
probably good for him. Well, he's a doctor. He goes by Dr. Bolivia. He's not actually a doctor, but he graduated from medical school.
Not actually a doctor, but he's a doctor.
His name's Dr. Bolivia.
It's Bolivian medical school. That's like when you see a dentist and they went to like the Cayman Islands to get their degree.
Okay, well,
do not get a root canal from that guy.
Okay,
what the hell's going on?
Well, his opponent wrestled and finished 7th at the Olympics for Team Colombia.
Ooh.
Does Colombia have do they have a wrestling team? I don't know. What I'm saying is these are people that came from tough Latin America, which is a version of the Ultimate Fighter for Latin Americans. There was a Team Mexico and there's a Team Latin America. These guys both were on the same team, both lost their first fight of the show. Now they're both fighting on a loser leaves town match, and I'm leaning towards Bentley Schuyler. But the main thing is here, for $4,300, there's some value because he's a striker, he's training at a good gym, people are trying to take him down routinely, and he's got good cardio. That's what is going to be the biggest factor. Is he going to be able to push the pace? Our other guy, Christos Giagos, also got him. $4,800, it was like, I can't go wrong here. And he's another one of those guys that could physically break you as the fight goes on. He's named the Spartan because of his Greek background. If you have a little bit of Greek background,
you're automatically isn't Elias the Spartan?
Yeah, and Vic Gruchik, who's another fighter, he's also the Spartan. So we've got 3 Spartans currently. Exactly.
They should just go by "This is Sparta."
Yeah.
Just come out and kick people in the chest.
Giagos, wasn't super familiar with him, but the first fight I seen him watch is he fought Dakota Cochran, who's a pretty good fighter. He fought him for the RFA Resurrection Fighting Alliance. It was their welterweight title on the line, and he knocked him out with a flying knee in the second round. Flies up, knocks him out, great. That's the kind of performance you would want out of a guy like Giagos in this fight. Now, he makes his UFC debut on short notice, and he fights, drumroll please, Gilbert Burns, our guy who we're big on. Burns smokes him, chokes him out in a minute and a half. I expect Burns to do the same thing on Saturday as well. Giagos never really got a fair shake. He was fighting a really, really good guy his first time out. Now he's a little more settled. On short notice. Now he's a little more settled. Now he's a little more acclimated. I get he has to fly to Brazil for this fight, but against De Oliveira, who I'm not very big on, I think he can definitely exploit him. Giagos on my Kountermove team.
All right, so we're going to fill out the Kountermove team with the Fight Pass guys. Plus, we're also going with Gilbert Burns on both teams.
Yes.
And who are we're going with Mafra on one team?
I decided, we'll talk about the 2 people that we have both, but Gilbert Burns and Andre Fili, I felt a must for both of my teams.
Okay.
Now, for starting with DraftKings, I got Gilbert Burns, Andre Fili. We went with Leonardo Mafra because, like we talked about, he has a potential to get that finish. Katsunori Kikuno at 8,500.
And Koscheck?
Hope for the best. And Koscheck at 7,500.
To save us some money.
To save us some money, we can configure the team together, and we're not going against each other. I've noticed on a couple DraftKings team, people pick both guys.
Yeah, I don't get that.
I have no idea what you're thinking, unless you think it's going to be a 5-round barn burner both
just
ways.
people doing rock
Soccer robots. Exactly. That's the only way that's a good idea, and that just doesn't really happen very often.
All right, so for the Kountermove team, you're going with Giagos.
Yes, well, Gilbert Burns and Andre Fili again. I know I kind of went against myself here, but we took Koscheck on DraftKings. I actually went Eric Silva on the Kountermove. $5,300, he was expensive. But people are big on him to get this finish, and as one Paul Shaughnessy says, Josh Koscheck's already talking about the future after fighting. And if you look at the guys in the UFC that have done that historically, they get blown out because you've got one foot out the door already. He's already owns a gym. He owns an IT company.
IT company? What do they do? Do they make apps?
Well, Warman went shooting with them in Maine for a bit of a hunting fishing show. A friend of ours, Tyler Warman. And he said when he was talking to him down there that he didn't want to talk about fighting. He didn't want to talk about training. He just wanted to talk about life and just living life and just making money. And he was kind of mentally checked out. If we've seen anything from his last couple performances, he's mentally checked out. Now, earlier on the show, I said this guy's a winner at life. He fights to the best of his ability, and I don't think he's going to quit on himself. That's the reason he's on DraftKings. But in the offhand chance he does quit on himself, I got him on Kountermove as well.
All right, so we go Fili, Burns, Silva, and the 2 Fight Pass winners.
Yes, Bentley Seiler and Christos Giagos.
For Kountermove. I really like that for the Kountermove team. We've been having a lot of success with that so far. And again, we'll see how we do again next week. Cody Saftik, thank you for being here. You can follow Cody on Twitter at CJ Saftik. And remember to watch the Bookie Beatdown on Fight Network and Fantasy Sports Network, which you can follow on Twitter at Bookie_Beatdown. Subscribe to the Pat Mayo Hour on iTunes and YouTube for the audio and video version. I'm Pat Mayo, and I'll see you next time.